How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to the Winners Club podcast. Now, in today's new freestyle, we are going to be discussing topics involving child development. Now, if you are new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell notifications, as that is the best way to stay up to date on the Winners Club content. And also, you can find the audio version of this podcast. The link will be down below in the description. As well, follow our socials. The link will be also down below in the description as well. Make sure to check those out. And we hope you all have a lovely day and a great week. Now, let's get into today's freestyle.
We live.
I'm going to start by just asking you guys a pretty broad question. And it's just, when do you guys feel like you achieved self-understanding? I'll specify, kind of when you really started to understand who you are and embrace your identity.
I would definitely say this past summer, going into sophomore year of college. So the entire summer, kind of towards the end actually, and then ever since I came to school, to be honest. Because anytime before that, it was just this is before I started, changing my habits. I was doing the same stuff every day. It was just a continuous cycle of just the same thing. So I didn't really understand a lot of stuff about myself until obviously we started doing this podcast and we actually started doing research and doing a lot of self-reflecting, and that's kind of when I started to realize a lot more things about myself, especially when I started reading. I think when I started reading, that's really when I picked up a lot of self-realizations about myself, especially when I read that book that Gibby recommended to me, The Way of the Superior Man by David Detta. Great book, which taught me a lot about myself. But even just doing little research things at the beginning of the year, just about the subconscious mind and just mental health in general, I think, like I said, I learned way too much information. Not too much information. You can never learn too much information, but I think that's probably when I say I developed that.
I mean, I would say for me, probably going into my sophomore year of college, that September range. Sort of, I was going through it, but I was still like you said, Miles, switching up my habits, learning more about myself. And I think, honestly, the most I've learned about myself is through journaling. I know I'm an advocate for it a lot, but I really do think it's the best option to really get in deep with your thoughts and be honest with yourself. And you also have a sense of clarity when you do your journaling as well. I mean, I do it the night before, which that is sort of when I'm sort of winding down. You're getting into your subconscious mind, because that is pretty much, it's the most important part of part of your mind. It's the biggest factor. You're making subconscious decisions when you don't even know it. You breathe with your subconscious mind pretty much. And that to me was sort of the sunlight after a rainstorm was, that September to December range where I really was suffering going through it, but I found a sense of clarity in myself, and I think through growth and progressing through it, that's when I really became more self-aware of myself and my thoughts.
I definitely agree with the part you said, journaling. I'd say that I finally had a good understanding of who I was the summer after freshman year of college, and then heading into sophomore year of college, like you guys both said. I started stepping into adulthood, and as I started stepping into adulthood, I started really discovering who I was when things were getting uncomfortable, and how I handled those situations. So, I want to bring up journaling. Journaling significantly helped me because it was a way of me kind of debriefing my thoughts and really tapping into my emotion. I've never really done that, but I became very, I feel emotionally intelligent. Learned a lot about myself to a way deeper degree. But this is, I feel like for all of us, we all draw parallels with one another of how we've all kind of developed heading into sophomore year of college, heading into our 20s, exiting our teens. We're now stepping into the older years of adolescence, young adulthood. And this is, I think, the best way of discovering ourselves is when we're making a massive transition in life. But there's a bunch of people out there who don't even know, but they do know themselves. They have known themselves for long periods of time throughout their life. They've just never really been conscious of it. For me, now that I really have a good understanding of who I am, I can reflect and understand, okay, I had a lot of these traits back then that now make me me, you know what I mean? So I was always mostly me. It's an identity crisis when we're young, when we're in middle childhood. We all go through this identity crisis, you know what I mean? When people are going through like weird phases of clothing, of the way you express yourself. They're funky ways. It's like a trial and error kind of thing that we've talked about in other episodes. But in middle childhood, you actually are drawing like a lot of parallels of who you were and who you are going to become in the future. I want to talk a little bit though, more so in infancy. So when we're young kids, the way that we react to the world immediately sets us up for kind of how we're going to engage later in life. So when you guys were kids, what are some things that you did, or what are some situations that, you know, you had to handle, and how did you handle them?
In terms of what, though? Like, that's a pretty broad question.
All right, when you became more social, when you started, putting yourself out there to start making friends for the first time in your life. Because when we started off as kids, we're very egocentric. It's for everybody. You know what I mean? I was very egocentric as a child. But when I remember, like, what life was like, I can barely remember it, but I can, of what life was like when I started becoming more social, how I even made my first friends and stuff like that. Like, how did you guys go about that? Because it foreshadows, you know?
Right, you want to go first for this one?
I know, this is like kind of like a weird
it's kind of like, it's a lot to think about, because I moved to Agawam when I was in first grade. So, like, it was definitely different, going into a new environment, especially being a kid of color in a predominantly, white town. It was, I'm not saying that it was necessarily difficult making friends, but I definitely saw myself as kind of being different than other people, you know what I mean? Now, eventually, of course, down the road, I started making tons of friends, you guys and all these other people. But it was still it was difficult at first, especially I think the biggest thing, too, is, I know I mention this all the time, is my hearing loss. Coping with my hearing loss and also trying to, I guess, you morph into this new environment. It's like I'm adjusting two different things, and they're not easy things to do, you know what I mean? Because me being young, like, this is still new to me, because at the time, when I was younger, I started losing my hearing, I think, when I was maybe 3 or 4. So, not much really long after that, I'm still trying to get used to this hearing thing, only hearing on one side of my head. And, meeting new people, I still do it to this day sometimes, when it comes to meeting new people, and it's hard to hear them, and I have to say a bunch of times, and it's just, awkward and stuff. But I had to, go through stuff like that probably to try to make new friends. But, it was difficult, but in the long run, it definitely played out well. How about you, Brett?
I think for me, my first ever sort of encounter was with my neighbor. I was real super shy as a kid, shyer than I was probably in 8th grade, 9th grade. Super, super shy. But I was more so open if they engage in conversation first. So obviously my first pretty much friend was my neighbor, and then after that it was more so just on the bus, certain bus stops, talking to the people on the bus. Dan was super close. We're still super close, but he was pretty much my second friend, was people around my neighborhood, and then we would do activities and stuff. But
yeah, so now that we just had a random question like that, can we even say, though, that we really understand who we are as people? Because you guys kind of hesitated, especially Miles, hesitated answering that question, hesitated really even remembering how you went about. So we're always discovering and trying to grasp a better understanding of who we are. But those encounters that we just talk about and discuss, those serve as kind of like the foundation for how we go about building quality friendships, companionships, relationships, attachments. So that's the big thing, is what I want to talk about, was when you kind of got your first taste of life at a young age, typically in the earliest stage of middle childhood. We start to develop psychological traits like smartness, kindness, aggressiveness, things like that we didn't have before. Because, I mean, when we were younger, obviously we were kind of the stereotypical dumb baby, still trying to figure out how the world works, still trying to figure out, you know, who we see in the mirror. Is that even us? You know, I'm learning about it in school right now. It's called the red dot test, and what it is there's these kids. They're 24 months old, so 2 years old. Their mental age, not their chronological age, which is a whole nother thing. They are placed in front of a mirror, and they are like face painted with like green on one cheek, and then they're put in the mirror for the first time. They have no idea, you know, if that person across from them is themselves or if that is like a playmate. If they touch their face and then touch the mirror, that's their way of distinguishing, yada yada yada. So we're very young at that point. We're only egocentric. We can't think outside of just ourselves. It's just kind of the me look. So I asked you guys that question because that was kind of like the first point in your lives that you didn't even know, where you started developing more psychological traits of sociability. So now the way that you set up that foundation as a young child still lingers with how you meet people now. You know what I mean? For me, I was a social butterfly when I was younger, and that can be a good and a bad thing. I stayed that way for a long time. I've thus changed a little bit, but I recognize that, you know what I mean? Through more internalized practicing, journaling, I was able to really understand that, oh wow, I don't know myself as well as I thought I did, because I was very social when I was younger and realized a lot from that. You know what I mean? It had implications. So now, obviously, we're adolescents. We're elder adolescents. We're about to be in our 20s. So we're much more psychologically developed. We have abstract thinking abilities now. It's not very concrete. And now it's kind of like we're getting clarity on where we were as kids, teenagers, young adults now. You know what I mean? So now I feel like is the most appropriate time to say that you understand yourself. Like we all said, we all, you know, are entering our 20s, we're sophomores in college, wrapping up. We got a good idea of who we are, you know? So I also wanted to ask another question though. When you guys were younger, what were some of the things that you enjoyed, and do they translate to who you are now? Because I have an argument real quick. I feel like everything that you first label as an enjoyment can be false. It can just be an environmental thing. So people, you know, say they love soccer when they were younger or something like that, for an example. So I mean, you're going to love it when you're older. Like, is it, like, you know what I mean? Are there parallels to be drawn with that? So go ahead, Miles. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. Sports, definitely. I mean, I still play sports to this day. So that's kind of something I've always picked up and ran with. But another big thing, too, is being an advocate for other people. I've always wanted to help people ever since I was a kid. And I think that's translated a lot. I mean, hey, that's what we're doing on this podcast. So I definitely think that's one thing that stuck with my personality deep down inside. You know, and I'm not going to lie, there was a period of time where I kind of forgot about that. Like, throughout high school, where it's like I forgot I had that trait. Like, it's always been there, but I never really brought it out because I was kind of just like, I don't know, I was just being me. I was being somebody that I wasn't. You know what I mean? Some other things that I found interesting as a child, I mean, there's like little things too, like you said, give you environmental things like video games. I mean, I still play video games, but it's not like, you know, my job or anything. But like, there's other stuff that I have been socially influenced by, but I'd say sports and helping people were probably the two biggest things, I'd say.
I respect that a lot. I like that.
Yeah, for me, definitely, video games, I mean, I was always 24/7. I would play so many video games, so many ridiculous hours on certain video games. But sort of right now, I feel like I've been on a different focus and not sort of in that focus anymore. Not saying that anytime soon that I'll get back into that focus, because a part of me, I used to even just upload random YouTube videos on YouTube, like just gaming videos, and I took a lot of inspiration from other creators, and I think, that creating content is still sort of a part of me, but not sort of in that specific niche at this moment. But it is something that I still enjoy, obviously, but just not at this time.
I like that a lot. That's a lot. It's very similar to what I would say for me. When I was younger, I definitely enjoyed helping anyone that I could in any way, shape, or form. That's just kind of how my mom taught me, raised me. Another one I think was always being physically active. I feel like that, not even playing a sport, just being physically active. I thought it was sports when I was younger, but not really anymore. But what I wanted to say was how when we're young, we foreshadow a lot of our life with our foundations and the systems that we set up. Like Brett, what you just said, you enjoyed making content, playing video games, but now look at you're making content, but in a different way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Same thing with Miles, you know what I mean? Like Miles, you played sports and growing up and stuff like that, but now you're getting into sports management. Similar, you're always going to be interacting with players, but you're not playing. Yet you also wrestle and do other extracurricular activities that are physical. You know what I mean? So this is what I want to bring up too is the power of redefining yourself. So we have just established the foundations that we set up, but we slowly redefined ourselves over time during our adolescent years. So when we reflect, say for instance, to the audience out there listening, if you guys were to journal and really take a deep dive and recall all the things that you enjoy right now and how they translated over time. Let's go all the way back to your childhood and what were the things you enjoyed then and how do they compare to how they are now? We see how we always have similar levels of interest. They just kind of change over time. I think it's very interesting though to talk about that kind of stuff because it does a lot in your subconscious. So for me, I veered off from being physically active for 2 years. And I felt really, really down, sad, depressed, but it was my subconscious's way of communicating to my mind, you're not doing something that you typically would enjoy, you need to do it. You know what I mean? It's almost it's not a discipline. I'm not going to say the word discipline because it's, it can be a scary word to some, but it's more so a stability factor. It will stabilize happiness and positive emotion. So when you take that away, when you take away a sense of or a source of happiness, obviously it's going to affect your subconscious. So now reflect real quick for me. If you guys were to, Miles, say you broke your leg and you could never play a sport again when you were younger, how would that have made you feel? Same thing with you, Brett. If you couldn't ever play video games again, how would that have made you? How would that have made you feel at that time?
It would definitely break my heart, I'd say, at the time, not being able to. You said ever again?
Ever.
Or yeah, definitely. I would definitely freak out because it's that's what I love to do. I'm not saying sports was my life growing up, but for some kids, it's that's all they got. So when they can't do it anymore, it's like we talked about before, your systems. Can you rely on your other systems? You know what I mean? But no, it would definitely, it would make me feel very angry. It'd be sad. So, luckily that's never happened, but knock on wood. But still, it would make me.
Listen, bro, it happened to me. All right, it happened to me with my concussions, asshole. Sucks. I'll tell you that.
No, yeah. So definitely, I think it's funny you brought up the whole gym thing because a year ago is when I stopped going for a complete year, and I found that I felt terrible. Mental health was horrible, bad habits, all that stuff. But now that I've recently got back in it, starting in September, It's just been a constant part of my life that just brings me happiness every day, because I know I'm doing something that is progressing me to be better, and I'm growing as I, get more physically active. And with the whole video game thing, back then I'd be like lost for words. I don't even know what I would probably do. But now I've pretty much cut video games off for a good amount, and I think that just comes with sort of substituting it with different like systems and habits, pretty much. So instead of playing video games, I probably do homework now, or just watch a movie with my family, pretty much. But yeah, that's for me.
Before you go, Gibby, I do want to mention something to the audience real quick. That's a quick analogy. So, like, you look at these self-improvements almost like, I'm going to say, almost like a software update, right? You have an iPhone, even though, like Gibby's iPhone, that's on iOS 1 for some odd reason. But,
there's just no need. There's just no need.
So you have an iPhone, right? And each update has more features, right? And it's more exciting when you get more features. Like, remember when we first got iPhones, like the new software updates, we would get new emojis. We'd like get excited because like new emojis, right? Think of it as like those being your new norms and new things that you like in life. You want that software update, but you got to go do it. You have to manually update yourself in order to get there. It's the same iPhone, just different features. That's kind of how you got to look at it, audience. But just wanted to mention that real quick.
Bro, I heard they made like a cabbage emoji or something like that. Is that
Bro,
true?
what do you do? Where did that come from?
Well, I don't know. You said new emojis, bro. So I was like,
I'm actually about to check now that you mentioned it.
All right. Anyways, yeah, nah, I messed with what you said, but I want to like put this in like a grander scheme. So we kind of just examined a lot of our subconscious enjoyments when we were younger compared to now and how they translate. You know what I mean? This is about the subconscious. This is what this podcast is about. Just a reminder. Subconscious is the most important. We argue this. It's not statistically proven. There probably will be no concrete way of proving it. But you can make very strong arguments with factual. Part of that is just observation, individual observation. So you guys just observed what made you happy when you were younger, kind of set up foundations and how it translated to now. You know what I mean? So it's very important that, in order to achieve self-understanding, you must reflect on your early childhood compared to now. Same thing, say, for an attachment. We're looking currently at attachment factors in my child development class. You have secure, insecure, avoidant, and insecure attachment. So basically what it is like how much, to what levels you were attached to a parent when you were younger affects how your kind of sociability, how your sociability is now, and how you're developing relationships with people. For an example, if you had a secure way of attachment with your parents, if you didn't need to be with them 24/7, but you also had reasonable ways of missing them, it's not like you just were totally emotionally absent, you're on path to have the most likely outcome of having healthy relationships with people now. Something like that, you know what I mean? So it's good to sometimes observe who you used to be and how that is translated to who you currently are. I think through doing this, you achieve a much greater understanding of what your happiness is, who you are, what your identity is the same thing as who you are. But more importantly, how you're going to pave the way for your future, because we're now adolescents, elder adolescents, young adults. We have had significant time pass since we were infants to reflect on our growth from that point. So now that we can internalize all of that, let's shift the focus now to where we are going in life. I feel like a lot of people are living aimlessly. They don't know what they're doing because they don't even know who they are yet. You know what I mean? So it's very important to have some level of self-understanding.
Now, we hope you enjoyed today's listen to the new Freestyle. Again, if you are new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell notifications. That way you're always up to date on the Winners Club content. And you can also find our socials. The link will be down below in the description as well. Make sure to check those out. And now we hope you all have a lovely day and a great week. And until next time.